All right. Hello to everyone online. Thanks for joining. I'm going to adjust settings real quick. There we go. All right. Thanks for joining, everyone. This is, I believe, the last one in the series of our industry job skill talks that we do. We'll start the series back over again in the fall after this. But back again with Brad Fackler, one of our career advisors here in OITE, to talk to us about negotiating industry offers and what you need to know when making that deal. So Brad, we'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Emily. This is one of the favorite ones I do because when we're doing the one-on-one meetings, that means the person already has the job offer, and all they have to do now is make it better. So we'll start here, and I want to start by asking you a question. Are you underpaid? Now, that's a bit of a rhetorical question for this audience because the answer is I'm a fellow, so of course I'm underpaid. But you may be surprised that you're not alone. According to the Know Your Worth survey by Glassdoor, the average U.S. employee could be earning over 13% more per year in their current base salary. And that comes to over $7,500. Now, why is that? That's because 56% of the people accepted the initial offer without negotiating. And you see that men did somewhat better than the women, but not any number to be proud of. And 53% of the employers lowballed the offer. Now, the good news for you is that in this industry, very, very, very rare that somebody's going to lowball an offer. This is a pretty competitive hiring market, so that doesn't happen very often. Now, as we said, this is based on the Know Your Worth survey, originally done in 2017 and then updated in 21 and 25. And interestingly enough, that 13% has stayed pretty much the same in all of those updates. So today we're going to talk about the offer, negotiating. Do you negotiate and what do you negotiate? And then accepting or rejecting the job. And then we'll talk a little bit about the early days of the new job. What's it going to be like when you show up for that new job? So we'll start here. And I should say before we get into it, I like to make these as interactive as possible. So if you've got questions, ask them. Those of you online, either raise your hand or pull yourself off the mute and ask the question. So throughout the last year, you have reached out to industries and companies that work in your area of expertise and in the area where you want to live. You've reworked your CV into an effective resume. You've conducted informational interviews with numerous company people. You've met and talked with hundreds of industry contacts. You've updated your LinkedIn and your social media profiles. You've been on a number of telephone interviews and multiple on-site interviews, and you've presented your science many times. And then it happens. You answer the phone and you hear, we would like to offer you a job with our company. Now, this is generally accompanied by some basic salary information, benefits information, a proposed start date, and specific items of the position. Now, it usually comes by phone and then will be followed up by a written offer. So, what do you do now? Well, the first thing you do is you take a breath and you think. You want to express enthusiasm and ask for some time to carefully consider. Factor in other irons in the fire that you may have, and take time to prepare for any negotiation that you think is important. And you want to explore your options. Do you negotiate? What do you negotiate? And consider help from mentors, OITE, and others. I recommend you make an appointment with me. And do you accept? Most importantly, you don't accept until you have the offer in writing. You want to address the start date and any previous commitments you may have, and you must then reject other offers that you have. And do you reject? Be respectful. No need to burn bridges, and explain your rationale. And when I say explain your rationale, this is where you want to be specifically vague. You want to provide a rationale, but you don't have to go into explicit detail. Now, it breaks down to really four types of offers. There's the great fit and the great offer. There's the great fit, but not such a good offer. There's the bad fit, but boy, they made you a great offer. And then there's the bad fit, bad offer, right? The first one and the fourth one, they're kind of the no-brainers. Okay, yeah, we're going to move forward here. But in the second and the third, are there elements within the offer that could make it acceptable to you? Or in the third case, are there elements of the job that would make the job more acceptable to you? And that's when you think about negotiating. So what do you want to factor in here? It's the nature of the job. Is it what you like to do? Is it what you want to do? And will it move your career forward? What are the salary? What are the benefits? Your boss or your bosses, your coworkers, and the location and the lifestyle. So now what? Is the offer equal to your worth? And this is where the preparation comes in. You want to know the value of comparable positions. The best source of that is through informational interviews, but there are online sources that are pretty good, such as Salary Wizard, Glassdoor, LinkedIn Salary. The one thing I will caution you on those is that the ranges tend to be a little wide. And that's really because of two elements. Number one, it's self-reported data. But number two, they don't factor in tenure. So somebody in the job 10 years is obviously going to be making more money than somebody in there for just a year. And then know what you bring to the table. Do you possess unique skills that may allow you to demand a higher salary? Got off my. And if you remember anything from what I say today, remember salary is not everything. You want to think in terms of total compensation. In order to do that, you probably need to know what the elements of total compensation are. First of all, there are bonuses. And those bonuses could be paid at signing when you sign on to the company. They could be paid on an annual basis. They could be on the spot for a particular accomplishment, or some combination of the three of those. All right. And the key here is it's much more common in the private sector and in government than it is in the academic world. There's profit sharing. First of all, there's dividends, and those are cash payments generally based on the performance of the company over the period of a year. And then there are various equity options. There's stock grants, stock options, and ADRs. ADRs, American Deposit Receipts. These are vehicles that international companies can use to compensate in an American kind of way. Excuse me. So Question you probably have is, what's the difference between a stock grant and a stock option? So a stock grant, I'll use my example here. You are offered 10 shares at $5 a share. So the value of the stock is $50. The value to you, because you actually own that share, is $50. Now, over time, the stock appreciates to $10 a share, and the stock now is worth $100, and the value to you is $100. Now, stock options work just a little bit differently. So instead of getting offered the shares, you're offered options on those shares at $5 a share. The value of the stock, $50. The value to you is zero at this point. Now, normally what these have are vesting periods, and those range from 3 to 5 years. In a 3-year vesting, you would be granted 33% vested in that per year. So over time, when the stock appreciates, the value of the stock now $100, but the value to you is $50 because you didn't really own that share. Now, as vesting takes place over time, then that stock option would be more like a stock grant. And then there are benefits. Health insurance. What are the types of plans? Is there a percentage covered by the employer? Is there a cost for adding spouse and family? And is there coverage for domestic partners? And are there available vision and dental plans? These are all questions you will have. Normally, when you get the written offer, they will send you the benefits booklet where all this is spelled out. And if you're a lawyer, you'll be able to understand. Then there's other types of insurance, life insurance and disability insurance. I worked for a company one time that offered 3 times the life insurance benefit if you died while on the job. And my wife threatened to take me down and throw me over the fence so that she would get that, yes, so that she would get that triple indemnity. And then there are flex benefits, and that is some combination of these that you may choose. There's retirement, and you need to know what the specific vehicles are. Now, this isn't particularly important to you at this point, but it may become important. An example of how that became important is in the early 2000s was an oil company called Enron. And Enron went, declared Chapter 11. And so the value of the company went to nothing. What it turned out that all of the employees' retirement was tied up in the company value. And when the company went belly up, there was thousands of people in Texas that lost a whole lot of money. So you just want to be careful. You want to look at what they are. And is there a match by employees? The vesting time, we talked about that in the other benefits, but there's vesting in this as well. And are there other voluntary plans that you can supplement it with? Paid time off, vacation, sick leave, holidays, PTO, the week between Christmas and New Year. Is that counted in there? And then is there a starting amount and then it increases over time, or is there a flat amount? And is it paid or unpaid for the amount of PTO that you have not taken at the time you leave the company? Tuition and assistance, job related only or limit to a certain amount per year. And do they offer student loan repayment? Relocation. If you have to relocate in the job, is that paid? Do they assist with housing and finding it and paying for it? And could there be job assistance for your spouse and your partner? There's all kinds of ways this has been done. I have relocated a number of times. Sometimes I just take the bills and send them to the company and they pay it. Other times they gave me a flat amount and then I paid the moving costs out of that. One thing you want to be careful with in relocation is that anything that a company pays in your relocation is added to your income for tax purposes at the end of the year. And there, they could offer childcare subsidies. Is that an on-site or, yeah, you have to look at waiting lists, salary guidelines, and things like that. And another one is possibly commuter assistance, paid parking, or reimbursement for mass transit. So this is a laundry list of potential benefits, and you can use this as a vehicle to determine, are there some of these things that you might want to negotiate? So we'll talk about negotiating your offer. So first, let's start with some myths about negotiating. First one is, if I negotiate an enhanced salary and benefits package, it will create ill will with my new employer. Generally not correct. World according to Brad is that most offers are made with the thought in mind that something will be negotiated. So the opposite of this is kind of, the first one is kind of nothing is negotiable, and the second one is kind of everything is negotiable. Well, that's generally not the case either. And that's because companies have salary guidelines, salary levels, benefits guidelines, and things like that that you have to fit in. But within those things, there could be elements to negotiate. And the best time to negotiate a better package is after I start my job and they see how good I am. And that one is not true either. The most power you have with a company is in that time between the time they sent you the offer and you sign it and send it back. Oh, I get all choked up when I talk about negotiating here. Come on, did I do something wrong here?
Good. Okay, there.
There I am.
Yep,
Okay, okay. So as you prepare, the most important thing you can do is do your homework. Learn as much as you can. Think through the offer in total, the aspects of the position, the aspects of the compensation. Monetize both the compensation and the benefits. And you want to research comparable offers for similar positions. Just worked with an individual one-on-one who got a job offer. He did a very good job of monetizing everything. Commuting costs, benefits, salary, and put it all together. And that's a good way to do that. And you want to be specific about what you really need and what you want to have. And one good way to do that is to define alternate acceptable outcomes. So if you're asking for one thing, they say we can't do that, maybe there's another element of the offer that they can do. Now, the negotiation may occur either by a telephone or by email. And the company is generally going to drive that. So when somebody asks me, will it be over email or phone? It's generally the way you have been in contact with the company throughout the interview process. So if most of your contacts have been email, there's a good chance it will take place by email. If they've been by phone, it could be by phone. So again, the company generally will drive that. Most important, park your emotions at the curb. All right? Try to take your emotions out of it. Think of it as a business conversation. That's what it is. Going to begin with a verbal conversation. and start by conveying enthusiasm, and talk about the elements of the offer that you like. I don't want to get in this room.
It's all about this room.
And then introduce the areas that you want to negotiate. And very important, listen carefully to what the responses are, because oftentimes they can give you ideas about what alternate acceptable elements of the offer might be. Take notes. And it's a good idea to restate the positions and agreements. Well, here's what we agree on. Again. Oh, there.
Yeah.
Oh. And end with a thank you and some level of enthusiasm. And it's good for you to make notes and send a written follow-up of the elements that you agreed on. Now, the reality is the company will the company will send you a revised offer that should include all of the elements of the agreement, but this is a good check and balance. And some of the questions you may be asked. What salary are you looking for? This is my least favorite question of all time. And so you want to try to avoid giving specific numbers. Example there, I'm seeking the right opportunity. Da 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 da. Okay? If you're forced, talk in terms of ranges. And what is your current salary? And I think you need to know that question is illegal. And here, just like in the top one, you want to focus on total compensation. So focus on the benefits, PTO, and the other perks that might be included in the job. So what you might hear from companies is, if I pay you what you're asking for, you'll earn more than other recent hires. Well, the correct response to that is doo-dah, doo-dah. Okay, you don't care, but that is a viable concern for companies. I worked for a pharma company at one time, and during the 80s, cost of living and salaries were increasing so fast that we were bringing on new employees that were being paid more than employees that had been with the company 5 and 6 years. And we had to do it because of the environment. Now, what they did is over time, they brought the current employee or the existing employees up to where those levels were. We're offering all new hires the same non-negotiable salary. And so there's the area where you want to define an alternate outcome. So if they can't pay you more salary, perhaps they can give you a bonus or an enhanced benefit package that will get you to your total compensation goals. So some final thoughts. Here's some suggested wording for you. In order for me to be productive in this job, I will need, lay it out, or I was hoping the offer would include, so something like that. And remember, be clear about what you need and what you want. And your preparation is really key here. And you may have heard this before, but salary is not the only thing. So flexibility and defining alternate outcomes is key to this. Now, what do you got, Molt? Boy, that'd be a good thing, wouldn't it? All right.
Best kind of problem to have.
So it is. It absolutely is. But people will oftentimes agonize over this. All right. But this is a good problem to have. Now you want to be clear and share any non-proprietary information with all the parties, right? Yes, I have an offer here, and again, the specifically vague philosophy works here as well. Know the timelines and appreciate that they may differ. So for example, you may have a deadline on one this Friday, and the deadline on the other one is not until the following week. So you need to work around that. And you can ask for more time. So in that case that I just laid out, you may ask that first one if I could have more time to decide. But be willing to hear that they may not give it to you. Now, what if you don't want the job? For whatever reason, it's important that you decline as soon as possible, as soon as you determine you're not interested in going forward. And be respectful. Keep the explanations brief and general, specifically vague. I don't believe it's a good fit for me. This may not be a good move for my family. My partner may not be able to find a suitable position, and I have other offers. Now, I am familiar with a situation, this happened a number of years ago, where someone I knew interviewed for a job at one company and turned that job down. About 5 years later, this person was interviewing for another job with another company, and it turned out he interviewed with the same individual that he turned down 5 years before. And in this case, he was offered the job. So a good example of not creating bad feelings. Start date. Vast majority of these jobs, they're going to want you there yesterday. They're going to want you there within a month after you accept. Now you can negotiate that, and delaying that start date by a couple of weeks is feasible. A couple of months, not so feasible. And alternatively, if you ask for more time to make your decision, that may push the start date out to where you're more comfortable with it. So this just focuses on industry, but just a couple of words about federal. Salary negotiation is doable, but you really have to have documentation here. So the initial offer will be generally at the first step of the grade, and to increase your chances of negotiating success, be very qualified and have that documented. Know the market conditions. They will be interested in your past salaries, and also consider bonuses here, loan repayment, relocations, and things like that. And then just a word about academic jobs. From a compensation standpoint, you want to make sure that that is a 9-month plan or a 12-month. Is it a salary and a bonus? And is there a requirement for you to get your own grants? And are there any upfront purchases that are going to need to be taken out of there, like lab setup, consumables, personnel, etc.? So I want to take a minute there. Are there any questions about the negotiation? Anything online, Emily?
Nothing yet, but feel free to unmute yourself or put any questions in the chat or the Q&A. Any of those will do.
See, you take a lot of notes there. You're going to be able to give this presentation next time. All right, well, let's move on to, you've accepted the job. Now you're transitioning into the position. So before you arrive, in that month before you arrive, you want to familiarize yourself with any company documentation, benefits, organizational chart, rules, regulations, etc. Ask if there's anything you should read or be caught up on before you get there. Any heads up on the projects? And stay connected. I mean, this isn't a long period of time, but you do want to stay connected in that month or so. And plan for success. I like a 30-day and a 90-day plan is a good way to do that. And just take time off before you get there. Because once you get there, you'll be sprinting 100 miles an hour. So if you have a chance to take time off in there, it's a good idea to do so.
I've just got a couple questions online.
Okay.
How do you recommend asking for space to think about the job offer when they call with that offer? Or is it already expected that you would take time to think and negotiate?
Yeah, normally they wouldn't expect an answer on that when you get that verbal offer. Sometimes they may push you a little bit in there, and you can just ask, I'd like to take some time to think it over. And that's really all you need to say.
And for PhD students especially, we are often encouraged to start applying for jobs 6 months in advance of graduation. How does that fit into companies' expected start dates, and how should we talk about that timeline?
Okay. Yeah, that you want to, during the interview process, you'll want to let them know where you are. But the thing you want to be aware of is it's going to take you from the time you start looking for those jobs until you get that offer, it's going to take you 9 to 12 months. So I don't think you have to worry about it.
Honesty is always the best policy. As long as all parties know that you're finishing your PhD and are approaching your defense date, they will be happy with that.
That it?
Yep, that's it for now.
Okay. So you want to complete all the pre-employment requirements, all the paperwork, and there will be a lot. You'll probably be required to do a background check and a drug screen, sometimes a physical examination. And it would be good to take care of the relocation if you can. Oftentimes, the relocation timeline may be a little different than the start timeline, and that can be worked out in the negotiation. Now, on your first day there, it's unlikely any work will be done. So there'll be orientation, there'll be forms and more forms. You'll probably get a tour, and you'll want to take some time getting to know what the culture's like, both in your lab and in the larger surrounding. You want to observe the work ethics, the expectations, practice professionalism. That should go without saying. Find out about the notebook protocols. How do they do it? When do they do it? All that kind of stuff. And get to know the teams. Know your coworkers. Try to get a handle on office politics. It'll be there, whether it's very blatant or whether it's not. It'll be there, but you want to try to get a handle on it. Look for the gatekeepers. Who are the people there who really know how to get things done? And then just keep it in your mind, transitions are always challenging. So don't expect to walk in the first day and just be ready to go. And finally, we talked about the plan, the 30-day, 90-day plans, summary or overview. What are your goals and objectives? What resources are you going to require to get there? And it's always good to include the assumptions. You don't know exactly how it goes there, so you're going to want to make some assumptions around that. And what are the risks? And a good tool is a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Communicate, ask questions, seek help, be part of the team. And once you start the job, stay connected. give back to your next generation here at NIH. And that's the NIH alumni database, which we will
In
have.
progress. It'll be here soon.
And it's good to update your resume and your social media profiles. Put your new job in there. So what resources do you have? First, with any questions, you can email me. And Emily will send these slides out to you. So you'll have my email. We talked about if you get the offer, it's a good idea to talk to me or one of the other career counselors, and that can be done at that website. There are our careers blog has a number of industry focused articles in them. There's one on stock options and grants, preparing to negotiate, and just a number of things. Salary benchmarks, we talked about that. There are the online sources, but remember those can be a little bit misleading. The informational interviews are the best. And transition interviews. We talked about the alumni database. It will be back around the end of the year, before the end of the year. But how do I say that?
Yeah, before the end of the year. Another great source of networking. Next month is the NIH Career Symposium, open to all grad students. It is a great 4-day long opportunity to network with professionals all over the country, all over the world, and in a massive variety of jobs. So yeah, if you were at all, exploring different careers and looking to connect with other people, attend the Career Symposium next month. Registration went live today, so it is now up on the website.
May
18th through 21st.
Thank you. Yes. And here's just an index of the top US biotech hubs and what the cost of living index is. And so you can see, and this will impact the salaries. So salaries in the San Francisco area are generally higher than salaries in this area, but that's because it's a higher cost of living area. Okay. Thank you. Now, are there any questions? We've come to the end. So everybody knows how to do this, huh?
We're all pros. I will say too, if you're in the middle of negotiating and you have a pretty short deadline for when you need to decide, and don't see any appointments open on our website with one of the career counselors, reach out to us still. You can absolutely still email us. We'll see if we can squeeze you in on someone's calendar. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out, even if it is a short timeline. Haley asked, could you please show the things we should research again? Oh, the list of what you should research when you're preparing.
Boy, that goes back a ways, doesn't it?
Yeah. We will also send you these slides, so everyone will have the slides and recording afterwards as well.
Okay.
And then,
Find it. Is that the preparation?
yeah,
This one?
do your homework.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
there we go.
All right, there it is. If you can see that, think through, monetize everything, and be specific about that and define alternate outcomes. And I think again here you want to remember that the salary is not the only thing.
Yeah, I think especially coming from, as fellows, just sort of like, here's your stipend, here's health insurance, that's it. Going into jobs after your fellowship, there's so many other factors to think about. And they all have monetary value.
Other questions? Do you have any
Yeah,
questions?
Maybe not a question, but could you maybe go through like a sample situation of maybe you feel like you're being lowballed in terms of salary, but it's your first kind of entry level position and it's an amazing market right now. how would you kind of respond to something you get really low? Like, can you kind of walk through like what you would genuinely say to them?
Okay, yes, okay. So that's where you want to use terminology like, I was hoping the offer would be in this range, or
Mm,
I was hoping that, so something like that. Okay. Now again, I've seen very few, if any, truly lowball offers. Now there are offers that are lower than others that would make sense to do that, but you know it it doesn't do a company much good to lowball, and especially in this area where there's a lot of biotech,
hmm
because that individual will move on very quickly. Okay, does that help?
Yeah.
It helps you to have an idea what others like similar starting salaries would be as well. Because if you have those numbers in mind, like, oh, I know this similar position would be paid X amount
Mhm.
at this company or at a similar company, that helps you too to know what is like reasonable to ask for.
Like a competitor almost,
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
knowing what they're
Yeah.
offering.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so how do you go about it with the Glassdoor and with Salary Wizard, with, you said those big ranges? How do you go about that?
Yeah, what I would recommend you do, I mean, you'll put the position in there
Mhm.
and the company, and you might see I don't know, $12,000-15,000 range.
Mhm.
And so when you're thinking about negotiating, I would peg that at kind of the lower middle of the range.
I think it helps too doing informational interviews with other people in similar positions. It may seem really awkward to ask people what their salary is. So one way that I like to phrase it is, what would the starting salary of someone in this role be? And so you're not asking like, what is your salary? It's just what would the starting salary of a
Very
new employee be?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It makes it more generic. Have you heard of many companies doing student loan assistance?
Has become much more common. I just went to the
Yeah.
And that has become much more common. And I mean, the only way you will find that out is if you ask,
Yep.
if it's available.
Always fair game to ask.
Yes.
Someone else asked, postdoc experience can be justified as work experience, right? Yeah, absolutely. If
Absolutely.
you're applying for a job, a
Yes.
postdoc is a job.
Yeah, absolutely. When you see the job listed in the job ad, it will generally say X number of years in this and X number of years doing that. If you've done those things during your postdoc, even if you've done those things during your PhD studies, those count. Add them up. Yeah, that counts.
Right now, the market gives employers a lot of power. What if they reject your negotiation and are firm on the original offer? Do you try to negotiate again?
You generally have one chance to do this. All right. And one of the things, and thank you for that question, because I forgot to say this going in, you have to, in your own mind, decide before you get into the negotiation, if that company says no to everything, are you still willing to take the job? And you have to decide that.
Depends on how good a fit it is
So
for you.
if you're asking for more salary, there's really only three options you have, okay? Yes, we'll give you what you're asking for. No, here's our offer. Or we can't give you what you're asking for, but we can give you this number, which may be between those. Those really the only three things that can happen.
Yeah, it's really up to you in deciding like how good a fit it is for you. Yeah, it's really gonna depend on the situation, which is where meeting with Brad or another career counselor one-on-one is absolutely a helpful thing to do when trying to talk through all these different negotiation things. Piggybacking off the previous question, does the current job market, high competition, change the negotiation strategy at all?
No, it doesn't. And I should say the job market is pretty good now. It's not like it was 3 or 4 years ago when we were in a hiring frenzy. So does it change? No, you still have the opportunity to negotiate. The range of negotiation may be a little less.
And we talked a little bit about this last month, but it does look like the hiring is improving slightly at this point. It's not as bad as it was even a few months ago.
Yeah, correct. And right now, I won't have the first quarter numbers until the second week of May. And so we'll try to get those out, but there's a lot of good thinking around what the hiring market is going to do in 2026. And I think I may have said, as I've worked through the last couple of weeks, I've seen an increase in people coming to me to prepare for interviews and to get help with salary negotiation. So I'm taking that as a good sign as well.
People are getting jobs. It's happening.
Mm-hmm.
All the questions so far. Oh, here we go. What if the job description provides a salary range for the position and the application asks for a desired salary? Okay, so the description is giving a range of what it could be, but then when they ask you to apply, they ask for you to give them a number.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Yeah. If they specifically ask for a number, yeah, you want to give it to them. You don't want to leave that blank. Good news is that you won't be held to that number. If and when they make you a job offer, you will still have the chance to negotiate that.
Would that number influence their perception of you in the application?
It could. Yeah, it could. It could. I mean, the best way to handle that is put your number in that range somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
When negotiating, is it appropriate to ask for commuter benefits like public transport or on-campus parking reimbursement?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Absolutely. And that the more common in metropolitan areas.
Mhm.
But that's certainly something that you could ask for. Yeah.
And that's a great example of things that are not just the salary that are negotiable. What strategies do you recommend for navigating job offers in a competitive market? Like, if it is a highly competitive market, how do you change your negotiating strategy?
Yeah, there's not that much that you would change.
Yeah.
All right. Remember that if they make you that job offer, they want you there.
Mhm.
Right. So asking for a few dollars more, not a big deal.
Yeah, I think don't be afraid to negotiate. It's like, even if it is competitive, you absolutely still have the right and the ability to ask for whatever you want.
So the question we saw on the presentation is, will it create ill will if I negotiate? And the answer is almost never. There is another side to that question, and that is, if you don't negotiate anything in that offer, that may raise questions about you.
Yep, they expect you to negotiate. What about negotiating relocation costs? Do companies still pay for relocation, or would asking for this make you seem like a less desirable candidate?
Not generally, no, not generally. And if you're here in DC and the job is in San Francisco, I think there's an expectation that relocation should be part of that offer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is an extremely normal thing to ask for. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? We got through all the questions.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And I look forward to seeing all of you in a one-on-one to prepare for your negotiation.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, sign up to attend the Career Symposium next month. It is a great opportunity to meet professionals, Yeah, take advantage of that for sure, networking and exploring your own career opportunities. Thank you all for attending. We'll send you all the slides and the recording afterwards. Oh, one more quick question. Are sign-on bonuses and relocation expenses separate?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, they're two different things you can negotiate.
Yep, those are two different things that could be negotiated.
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you all. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We're always happy to answer questions by email as well. We hope you have a good day.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Well, a little short of a standing ovation.
On the mic.